My name is Lindsay Frost, and I'm the Sustainability Director.
All right, and how long have you been here?
So I have been with the Office of Sustainability for about 3.5 years, and I've been in the Sustainability Director role for 5 months. And then I also, when I was an undergraduate student, I also worked in the Office of Sustainability when it was a brand new office in 2009 and 2010. I think that question would probably actually depend on who you ask. So before the surplus program was sort of formalized in 2008, 2009 through the Office of Sustainability, there was just like a large warehouse space on campus where departments would take furniture that they weren't using anymore and they would maybe swap it out. And then the surplus program really formalized that process, made it more available to more of campus. And also just made sure that all of the sort of state policies and statutes that we need to be following for the proper disposition of these different, assets and furniture pieces are being followed properly. So what is that? 15 years? 17 years? 17 years? Oh my gosh. Yeah, so the surplus declaration process is a way that departments on campus are able to declare items that they no longer need. So whether that's furniture in their office that they no longer need, or whether that's equipment that they are no longer using, or sometimes it's equipment that is frankly broken, they're able to fill out a form online and declare that those items are surplus, declare that their department is no longer in need of them. Once they submit that declaration, a number of different administrators across campus receive that declaration and review it. So it goes to accounting, it goes to safety and assurances to make sure that there's no hazardous materials that are being declared. And it goes to also the campus grounds department. And then it is actually the campus movers who go, campus mover, there's one campus mover. The campus mover goes to the department, say it's the math department that is getting rid of 100 chairs. They go and are able to pick up those surplus materials and then bring them here to the surplus warehouse where we intake them. We do sort of like we can tell some items when they come in that they're clearly broken or clearly aren't going to be a very high reuse value. So some things we're able to send to metal scrap or send to different recycling streams. Other things we retain in our inventory, and then we try to either reuse those items back on campus or sell them to the community for usually really affordable prices. And then that surplus process, we actually are required, our budget requires that we make $50,000 every year by selling all of these sort of goodies that you see around us here, and that is really how we offset the costs of operating the program. The surplus program also saves campus by reusing items. So we are helping to not send those items to the landfill, which is very expensive and also not the right decision for us to be making as a campus. So we're able to keep all of this furniture, all of this equipment from being thrown away. And that has a cost savings associated with it. But then the bigger cost savings is really, let's go back to the example of the math department sending in 100 chairs. If those 100 chairs are still usable, maybe the art department needs 80 chairs, and we're able to reuse those pieces of furniture across the campus. And we track that. We're a very data-driven department and a very data-driven decision-making team. So we're able to track all of the items that are being reused. And in our most recent fiscal year, we were able to save campus over $530,000 by not having to purchase new items and just reusing the items that we already have. We are responsible for getting things out in the most responsible and highest use value. So we're not a storage facility. We don't take things in through the surplus declaration process and sit on them. So there have been times where even something as simple as like a rug, someone got rid of someone else's rug, and it happened to still be here, and we were able to get it back. Other times, sometimes that happens where the thing has, gone on to its next life. But that is pretty rare, and that's why that documentation process is really important. I would say we're probably formally reusing between a third probably around a third of the items, and then around another third of the items are getting recycled in some way. So that might be that they're going to the electronics recycler. That might be that they're going to a metal scrap recycler, a wood recycler. We have a whole bunch of different ways that we can recycle things. And then another third of those items still, unfortunately, are probably going to be going to the landfill. There's just stuff that we're still getting that doesn't have a good recycling stream, and it is still considered trash. So we're still diverting, though, over 2/3 of that material from going to waste. Yeah, so our department currently is overseeing 29 different reuse, recycling, and waste streams, and we're in the process of adding a 30th. So recycling is a complicated market and a complicated just sort of field. So most of the time when people think about recycling, they think about like the recycling they put out on their curb. But lots of other items that can't go in your recycling bin at home are also recyclable. So electronics and metal are really good examples. You can't put your computer monitor in your, the recycling bin that goes out on your curb, but things like things like computer monitors or TV screens or all of the electronics that we get, all of those have really high recycling value, especially because of oftentimes the precious metals that are inside of that. So we are not staffed nor resourced to be breaking apart all of those electronics here at UWM, but we have a contract with a certified electronics recycler, and they actually are able to go through, harvest all of those different metals and different materials and make sure that those are being recycled to the sort of like highest value. Same thing with metal. We receive, usually it's going to be sheet steel metal. So if you think of like old file cabinets or old metal bookshelves, those are just like sheet steel. There is a sort of ebb and flow of the metal recycling market, but we're always able to at least net positive, recovering a little bit of funding for our metal recycling. Same thing, we're at least not sending it to the landfill. And then we also recycle a number of other non-ferrous metals, so things like copper, things like aluminum, brass, different wiring that the campus has in abundance. And we're able to separate those types of items out as well and make sure that those are going to the appropriate metal recycling vendors too.
Hi, my name is Ben Konitzer. Work with the Office of Sustainability. I'm the recycling and solid waste specialist. But really I focus on recycling for the campus and waste diversion. We're out at our building out on Capitol, the USRB building. This is our warehouse where we process all of the recycling that we collect from the campus. We collect cardboard in these large gaylords, that's what they're called, and we turn them into these bales using our baler. Each one of these bales is about 800 pounds. So we save these from landfill, and by separating this out of the single sort stream that the majority of the recycling goes into from the campus, this is going to be turned into a higher quality paper product. So this can be turned into cardboard or an actual loose leaf kind of paper, whereas if this went into the single stream, this would be turned into a lower grade product, maybe like a paper towel, toilet paper, something like that. Well, we get charged per ton for anything that goes in the single stream. So it's going to save on an avoided cost. And also this is a commodity. So we get a little bit of revenue from it, really depending on how the commodity markets work. These and these black gonzos, all of this is loose paper and journals. Each one of these is about 800 pounds too. So we got 8 of these at the moment. We also get a little bit of revenue from these also as a commodity price on a scale. And again, this is going to go into a higher grade product. All of this has been about 3.5 weeks of collection and baling. So we do this throughout the semester. This can be 2 weeks to about 4 weeks until we have a vendor that comes and we put it on with a forklift onto a semi, and it goes to a paper processing vendor. So this is a pilot program that we just started a couple months ago, where we wanted to start to recycle plastic film. So that is anything from your normal grocery bag to an Amazon bubble mailer to pallet wrap as pallets come into our docks here. So we're starting to collect all the clean plastic, and that's what all this is. And we just made our first bale, and this is going to go to a vendor that recycles all of this. They pay 14 cents a pound, so that's a little bit of revenue for us, but also an avoided cost of not having this go to landfill. This takes up a lot of space in our garbage and our 30-yard dumpsters where these get placed, and those are hundreds of dollars to take each time, plus we get charged for the weight. So our plastic film just takes up a lot of space. So we took 8 of these completely filled, and we ended up making our first bale of plastic, and that's what this is. So this is 8 of those Gaylords full of plastic. This is 940 pounds of plastic. So this is going to get recycled through a third-party vendor into like decking material and like fencing material. So it's pretty sustainable. We keep this all out of the landfill. We get the benefit of an avoided cost and the benefit of a small revenue stream as well. So these are all plastic. You can see like there's like Amazon mailers, any kind of overwrap they call it. So if you get like a case of water, well that plastic wrap that's on the top of the case, that goes into this. But the majority of this is actually plastic bags from all of the blue cans on campus. So when you are going to recycle your plastic bottle or your can, you throw it into one of the blue containers on campus. The custodial staff takes that and they put it in a certain area. I collect that. Those all get dumped out into a single stream compactor, and then those plastic bags are going to be sent off to this recycle stream. This is still in a pilot program, so this is our first bale. A rough estimate is that through avoided cost and revenue, each one of these bales that we make will save the university $500.
Yeah, so the surplus store, it is a by appointment only store where students, faculty, staff, the general public are able to set up an appointment to come here and visit the surplus warehouse, and they're able to kind of see the different inventory that we have available. Because of the way that the surplus program is staffed, really minimally staffed, we aren't able to have open store hours. We only have one employee who runs the surplus program. So we do have to operate by an appointment-only basis. And then same thing, because of some of just the ways that our resources are limited on running the program, we're not able to get a picture of every single item that comes in and maintain like an online inventory. That would be such an undertaking of a process. It would be really cool. It's just not the way, unfortunately, that we're resourced. And oftentimes our inventory turns over really, really quickly. So we're getting items in and they might be going out the door even the same day that we're getting them. So the best way really to see the types of items that we have in are to come here in person, or you can send us an email and say, you can list out specifically like, I'm looking for a purple file cabinet. Does surplus have a purple file cabinet in stock? And we can just tell you yes or no without you having to come and visit. We do find though that because of all of the sort of like oddities and miscellaneous things that we have here, people generally enjoy just kind of coming and looking around and kind of finding treasures mixed in amongst all of the surplus inventory. Basic items that we're almost always going to have in surplus are things like chairs, tables, desks, file cabinets. Bookshelves kind of do ebb and flow oddly sometimes, but they're a more common sort of like office item. Because most of the surplus that we're getting is coming from, offices and shared workspaces on campus, it does lean really heavily towards office-based furniture. We occasionally get more like lounge-based type of things. We do not get the furniture that's coming out of university housing. So we sometimes get asked questions like if we have beds or things like that. We don't get those types of furniture items. So it's usually going to be more leaning towards office or lounge type materials. We usually have a really steady supply of computer screens, monitors. So monitors are a really popular item. especially as folks are, transitioning to different work formats. It's nice to be able to plug your laptop into a bigger monitor screen. And those are pretty expensive, and you can come here and get one for $15 rather than having to, buy a new one. So computer monitor screens, I would say, are another like really popular item that we usually have pretty well stocked. It's really fun seeing students come in, especially if they just moved here. So we have students who are coming in to UW Milwaukee from all over the world and all over the United States. And, maybe they only come here with their suitcase, and furniture is really expensive. There's not always a lot of really great options for buying used furniture in the community. So being a resource that students can come here and be able to get those types of chairs, and as long as they're being creative, like maybe they can use something that used to be a conference table as a dining table, and they can kind of set up their apartment for really affordable prices.
All right, so again, start with your name and your position here.
I'm Adrian. I work for the Office of Sustainability as the Operations Coordinator.
All right, and how long have you been here?
5 years.
All right, and where did you start out here?
I started in the recycling department that Ben took over now, and for 2 years I've been doing the surplus.
What is like some of the craziest stuff that you've seen come through here?
Oh,
Craziest stories about it?
I think 11 headless Brazilian models came in one day, and those were interesting to pick up and sell. But, we get a lot of medical equipment. We always have a saying like, put it in the universe, it'll show up here. And I mean it, everything and anything. Sometimes it's, different programs that, were here and gone. And then when they're gone, they send the remainers to surplus. So I think that's why we get some odd things sometimes, like ceramic clay and art, student art a lot of times, books, a lot of different items. People come in for about a half hour. They take a look around. It's cash only. And we find some amazing deals here. So in surplus, we get a lot of chairs, office chairs, standing chairs, and we sell these right now for $1 a piece. They're normally about $5 to $15 a piece, depending on the chair. One of the crazy stories we've had is we got 400 chairs in once at one time, and they said they were broken, but when we checked, they really weren't broken. They were actually made that way. And the next day, someone in the university needed 300 chairs, and it decided to take all 400. So we get a lot of records from the music department and other departments as well. We get musical instruments. We had about 26 pianos that came from the music department, and we were selling these for $200-300 a piece. We're down to just a couple left now. So over here in surplus as well, we get office supplies, but we get some cool older office supplies. We've got some old IBM typewriters. We get staplers, transparencies. We get video projectors, some older book readers, and then some really old technology. This is a slide reader where it would take the slides on a cassette and it would film it in the front so you can view them. We do get some photography, like tripods and things like that. And so on our top shelf, we have some older Macs and Apples. We don't sell any of these. They're just kind of for display. So in this part of surplus, we get a lot of old electronics. So cassette players, speakers, monitor stands, video projection machines, a lot of, we even have some old slide projectors, and then a lot of monitors that'll come through that we'll sell. Monitors usually sell for about $15 a piece. These are some of the items that came from our chem building that's going to be going down. Some file cabinets, credenzas, things like that we went through and picked up. The lockers came from the police department, and we'll sell these because they're in really good shape. So these are some of the items that come in for surplus, and they're older, rusty, or they're missing components. My job is to kind of go through the things that come off the trucks. And if it's something like this, which is fully metal, we'll take it apart and we send it to recycling, metal recycling. We are in one of the hallways that we keep some of our larger items for surplus that come through. So a lot of these are going to be, well, besides being just larger and taking up space, these are capital assets. So Capital assets are items that the university paid $5,000 or more for. And when they come out of service, we have to report that to the university and keep track of them until they're either surplused or recycled. So a lot of the larger items or more expensive items we sell on GovDeals. It's a RAN site, internet RAN site for the government. And that helps us basically so most people can pay with a credit card. Instead of at surplus, we only take cash. A lot of these have to be picked up by large trucks or shipping companies. And it just becomes easier to sell. There's not going to be a lot of students looking for a lot of these items. So this is one of our book drills that came from the library. It's an older model, probably, I would say 30 years old. It's used for drilling through large stacks of paper. And this is one of the older cappuccino makers that came from Sandburg, came to us, and it doesn't work, but a lot of times we'll sell it for parts for people.
Prior to my time here, it was like the year I had started, but it came from, I think, health sciences or maybe one of the health science programs, and it was like a giant egg pod, and you sat inside of it, and it scanned all of your sort of biometrics of your body, and that was sort of an interesting item that stood out. We have gotten, I think, some of the more really sort of beautiful items that I think speak to like the history of a university. We've gotten like the Dewey Decimal file cabinets that are used in libraries. I don't even know if students know Dewey Decimal System. Okay, cool. So like the old wooden, there's like 70 little drawers, and they all had little cards where all of the different library books were stored within the library. So sometimes we get those types of items in, and they're made with solid wood, and they're just really beautiful pieces of sort of like speaking to the history of a university. So those stand out as being really interesting. We've gotten homemade items. So sometimes like laboratories on campus are fashioning their own devices to, run an experiment or sort of achieve whatever end goal that they're trying to achieve in their laboratories. So we've gotten some questionably very unsafe items that I think actually departments were told they had to get rid of. So they came here, and it was very clear that they were homemade. Oh, when the union renovation happened over the last couple of years, so the union has been updated and renovated. We got all of the old furniture that was in the old guest house. So very iconic, like booths and chairs and wooden chairs, and the furniture that was in the bowling alley. So some of those sort of, if you're a student at UWM, they're very iconic furniture pieces that you probably interacted with in different ways over the years. So those really also stood out as, when I was a student going to the guest house and meeting up with friends and seeing them come through here as sort of getting a new way that they can live on rather than having to end up going to the landfill. So we're here in the surplus warehouse. We get a huge array of equipment and usually furniture, but we also sometimes get specialized equipment in from different departments when departments no longer need or have space or have a programmatic use for certain pieces of equipment. And this is just an example of some of those bigger pieces of equipment that we get. So this is a injection molding machine, obviously quite large, very heavy. And we have to follow different rules for the ways that we can actually do what is called final disposition. So whether that is selling them to the public on auction, whether that is sending it to a certified vendor for final recycling, or whether that is trying to reuse it either within the campus with a different department or even within the state with other state agencies. Sometimes we're able to transfer items to like the Department of Natural Resources or different state agencies as well. So we have to follow a bunch of different sort of steps and procedures for some of these more specific pieces of equipment that we get in. Whereas things like our furniture that we get in, we're able to usually sell those or return them back to campus in a sort of more streamlined fashion. We have another example just of a large piece of equipment. So this piece of equipment, we actually had to collaborate with the safety department on campus first because it is a DEXA scanner and it actually had a X-ray source. So we have to collaborate a lot with the safety and assurances team for items that either have or could have had some type of hazardous material, or in this case, a radioactive source. So they work on removing that, making sure all of that's okay. But then items like this, we're not able to sell to the general public. So we have to go through additional steps. If we were to sell this, it could only be sold to people who are, well, not even to people, it would have to be sold to companies that would be able to purchase it. Or we're able to go through our certified vendors and make sure that these are being reused through the proper channels. But you can see these types of items that are complicated also take up a lot of space within our warehouse. These items, these examples of these larger industrial or specialized equipment, these are examples of items that aren't currently for sale, even though they are here in our warehouse. So the Office of Sustainability, every year we publish an annual report, and it goes over all of the sort of data highlights of our different programs that we oversee. So it gives our financial overview, so the revenue that our different programs make. It also goes into the revenue that we get from our different like scrapping and recycling streams, and then the ways that we avoid costs for the campus. So our recycling program avoids costs of about $300,000 every year. Our surplus program is usually between $500,000 to $600,000. We also, through past energy conservation projects, are saving avoided costs through energy upgrades across the campus, and those are usually in the tune of several $1,000,000 a year. So energy conservation investments have a really good return on investment in terms of avoided costs in the future. So we kind of just highlight all of that data that we collect in a given year, and then add stories like student stories. So students running the gardens or students who are getting involved with special projects that we have going on in a given year, and kind of highlight all of that together in an annual report. And that's always available up on our website. I think we have probably 4 or 5 years of backdated annual reports posted on there at this point. So in addition to highlighting some of the sort of financial aspects, we also do calculations on our avoided carbon emissions from the different programs that we run. So we highlight those in here as well. Since the tours today were largely focused on recycling and surplus, I'll just highlight a couple stats from here. So this was fiscal year 2023. So the surplus program made $80,000 in revenue. Some of that revenue is revenue that offsets our operations. Some of it is actually revenue that is able to go back to other departments if they're selling an item that they're going to be replacing. So if a department is selling a microscope and they're replacing it with another microscope, we actually have a mechanism where we can help them offset those costs through selling their previous item. So some of that is actually funding that's going back to other departments on campus. And I think that's an important point for people to understand too, is there are ways for departments to be benefiting from the surplus process too. And then, so our total surplus avoided costs was $594,000 in FY23, fiscal year 23, and we reused 6,889 different items. So that's one person reusing all of that stuff just in 1 year. You know, we're not open Saturdays, Sundays. That's just throughout the work week with all of the other programs that we're also running. So I think both our recycling and our surplus program, they're each just run with one person. We have built-in backups, obviously, for like vacations and training, or vacations or sick days and things like that. But it's really impressive, like the efficiencies that we're able to achieve with these very sort of bare bones operations, and then the amount of waste that we're able to divert through those operations. We want to recycle over 1 million pounds. And when this report was written, we were at 745,000 pounds. We've really ramped up our cardboard recycling with, especially with like dining departments on campus where a lot of cardboard is being generated, and they're able to divert that. And we've been stepping up our composting too, which is embedded within our recycling numbers. So I think I think that 2025, we might be eclipsing that 1 million pound of recycling mark. So that would be, I think, a really cool thing for us to achieve. One of the things that I really wanted to come back to UWM for was just working with students and helping students sort of not only navigate that really interesting time in life where, you know, your whole life is sort of ahead of you and you have a lot of really big ideas about the way that you want to make a positive influence on the world. And then also it's a scary time and it's a complicated time for a lot of young people. And so coming back and being able to like support the students and work alongside the students. And I think one of the biggest sort of full circle moments for me, and I'm like going to start to tear up here a little bit, students have done so much for sustainability at UW-Milwaukee. And a lot of the really successful initiatives that we run and that are still like the foundation of sustainability at UW-Milwaukee either are run completely by students or were started from student ideas. So our composting program, we've actually had 4 different students play monumental tasks and roles in, first of all, bringing composting to UW-Milwaukee, helping us develop the way that we do our composting now, bringing service learners into our composting program. And most recently, students have actually helped us gather all of the data and information we needed to successfully write a grant to scale up our on-site composting. So seeing how students can be empowered to make those really big changes, and then seeing how those changes are able to become really sustainable over the long run. We have a number of native gardens on campus that promote pollinators and promote habitat on campus. We have a number of food gardens, some that are food gardens that are available for students and the community, the campus community to rent and grow their own food. Other food gardens where our office grows food and we send that food to the food center and pantry on campus. We have a hydroponics system where we grow food year-round indoors and donate that as well to the food center. And then we have our technically 3 different methods and soon to be 4 different methods of running composting on campus. So one is a contracted method, another is through our static piles in the hoop house on campus, and another is actually in a student-built like prototype device that actually breaks down the compost materials a little bit faster. And then the 4th, which we're waiting to get a grant on right now, is actually like a semi-industrial tumbler that would break down the food waste. Supposedly in a week, we're going to be doing some experiments and trialing that. So I think just some of those other programs that are overlap with recycling and surplus, but also are their own programs as well. Right now, one of those projects that we're working on that's kind of like, we like to say that we plant seeds, because a lot of times the things that we work on, we plant a seed and it might take 2, 3, 4, 5 years before it gets traction. And then it might take another 5 to 10 years for a program to really take off. And one of the programs that we're working on right now with a number of students, but also a number of other staff and faculty on campus, is a concept called a free store. So a free store is something that the Conservation Club, which is a student organization here at UW-Milwaukee, they've been working on advancing this idea at UWM for several years. And because those students have been chipping and chipping and chipping away at this idea, they've really been able to build momentum. They've been able to show that there's student support for the idea. And we have been able to collaborate with them more recently to sort of help take that project idea to the next level, present it to campus leadership, present it to decision makers, and hopefully by fall 2025, we will be able to have a functioning free store at UW-Milwaukee. And a free store, for those who aren't familiar with the concept, a free store is a space on a campus where students can donate usually their clothes that they don't need anymore. Sometimes free stores are also able to accept other items like cooking pans or maybe dishes or cookingware. So items that students often need and that aren't always able to have the financial resources to tap into those resources. So very common, becoming increasingly common on college campuses. Right now, students run sort of pop-up versions of a free store, but this would be an effort to get a more permanent free store resourced on campus. I think that one of the easiest ways is for students to set up an appointment and come here, especially if you're living off campus. It's just a really great resource. If there are students who ever wanted to do, say, maybe business students who wanted to do a deep dive project on a different asset of sort of like our business operations side, we have lots of data and we have the potential for new systems to also be built. I think it'd be a cool challenge if a student maybe could figure out a way for us to get a better inventorying system in place given our resource constraints. So our office is always looking at like ways for process improvement. So if students wanted to get involved and they had an idea that was feasible, we host students through internships. So often those are going to be class credit-based internships. So a student can take a class for credit and develop a project with us, and we will sort of help them implement that. Another way that students can get involved with surplus is, I think, if they're in laboratories or they're in different spaces on campus, and though their faculty, professors, or staff who are around them, if they're saying like, oh, we really need new chairs, sometimes there's staff on campus that don't know about surplus yet. So even just being like, oh, a word of mouth. And then we talked about the free store concept, which is different than surplus in that surplus does not handle personal items, whereas students can certainly help get involved with a free store, which is kind of like the equivalent of a surplus program for students to bring their items in. And that's a really important initiative that I think students can get involved with too.